It's not just about closing the sale. It's about the experience the client has. On an average file that you intake, how many tasks do you have per file?
Oh, I actually know this.
Of course you do.
So it does differ between if we're working with a buyer or seller, just because
Sure.
there are some parts of the contract that are seller only items, and there are some parts of the contract that are buyer only responsibilities. But on average, it's between 35 to 36 tasks, and that's from start to finish. So that includes, we get a file and we start digging into it and we start our intake process. We submit it to where it needs to go, to the actual like meat and potatoes of like, we're under contract and now you have to keep track of all these contingency deadlines, to closing it out with the broker. So each and every client, we're doing at a minimum 35 to 36 items to get you from under contract to the closing table. But I say minimum because some of those items we're checking on constantly, like that appraisal, for example. The appraisals are probably one of the hardest things to keep track of because it is so out of our control. All we can really do is just be a fly on the wall and monitor and like nudge every once in a while, be like, hey, what's going on?
Pleasantly persistent.
Be pleasantly persistent.
Yep.
It's a nicer way of putting it.
Sometimes that's hard to do. But
yes.
So that just reminded me, I wrote a note down, the intake process. Like if I'm thinking for our audience here, if it's an agent listening, well, why do I need a TC, right? So if an agent said, why do I need a TC? Number one, first and foremost, you can't be great at everything, right? Like
Right.
I'll take my experience. When I developed the team model years ago, it was because I had, at one point in time, I had 42 or 44 pending contracts at one point in time as a single agent, pending on the pendings board. There is no possible way that I kept up with all those deadlines. I communicated, and I say this humbly, and I'm being vulnerable to just share this as the importance of having someone like Katie on your team. I went to closings and I couldn't remember the client's name. That's how busy that I was. And that was an aha for me. I'm like, all right, this is not about the money. There's people here and I need to make sure these families get taken care of. And what could I have done if I would have had a Katie back then, if I would have had a transaction coordinator back then to enhance that client experience so that they could have had that red carpet service that they deserved? Right? It's not just about closing the sale. It's about the experience the client has. And not only that, but also I'm not the best at paperwork. I'm not the most organized person in the world. And most agents aren't either. And so one of the things that a great transaction coordinator can do is catch those things that are mistakes that are made often, either by the other agent, either by yourself, a change in the contract, a deadline that's misquoted, something to be a second set of eyes to ensure that the contract says what it's intended to say and it's accurate for the broker, right? Like there's a big piece there, not only to make sure everything gets executed, but also let's make sure the paperwork is accurate. You would be amazed, maybe not, but most agents will probably be amazed by the amount of contracts that we receive from other agents that are incorrect, right? And I hear that from my coaching clients. And so it's just another avenue of that insurance policy, if you will, or a safety net to ensure that your paperwork is accurate. And ultimately what it matters is if your paperwork's not accurate, can you really look out for your client's best interest if the paperwork, if the contract doesn't say what you thought it said?
Oh, no. 100% no.
Yeah. And so that's what a great transaction coordinator will jump in and help with.